Teleprime with the GST section. In this section we are going to learn about what's the GST and what are the models of GST and what is the common GST rate. Then we are going to look at that what is the common GST rate with example. The final part is the process of GST setup. So the first part is what's the GST. GST means good and service tax. It's a comprehensive tax levy on manufacturers, sales and consumptions of goods and services in the national level. Its indirect tax, incident and impact are different points. So if you look at the word of GST, there are three letters include. The first G, the second letter is S, the third letter is T. So G means goods, the S means service, T means tax. So simply we can say that goods and services tax or GST. Right. Now we are going to look at that the comparisons of indirect tax system with GST. So GST it's a very easy to implement it in the national level. That's what the GST is called, that one nation and one tax. It's very simple to implement in the national level. But if you look at the indirect tax system with the GST tax system, it's totally different. And the GST very easy to implement in the national level, but the indirect tax system it's difficult to implement in the national level. If you look at the picture, you can easily to understand the indirect tax system with GST tax system. First line is I took as an example for indirect tax system. Here the second line, this is the GST tax system. So if you look at the first system, it is the indirect tax system. It's really complicated. You can see here the manufacturer's cost. The manufacturer's cost for the good is 100 rupees. Then the government implement the tax, excise duty and VAT. So excise duty 10%, VAT 5%. So if the indirect tax implemented, the cost of the price it will come 115. After that, distributors set the margin 20%. So if he set the margin 20%, the selling price is how much? 138. After that, the VAT 5% and service tax 15%, it will come 7 plus 21. So the totally retail shop price is 166. After that, the retail shop margin is profit margin is 20%. So the price should be 193. Then the government implement tax, VAT 5%, it should be 10 rupees, and service tax 15%, it should be 30%. So the consumer took this goods 239, right? There are variety of tax implement. The first one is excise duty, VAT 5%, service tax 15%. But if we implement the GST, it's a very simple to implement and get the tax. And compare with these two examples, if you look at this, the second one, GST rate tax system, the manufacturer's price is 100 rupees, then GST all level 10%. So if it is GST 10%, the GST value is 10 rupees. So the distributor price is 110. After that, the distributor profit margin 20%. The price should be 132. Then after that, the government GST rate 13. So altogether, the retail shop price is 145. After that, the profit margin 20% for the retail shop. So the price should be 174. Then the GST 10%. So altogether the consumer paid 191 rupees. So if you look at this tax system, the GST is very simple to implement, just 10%, that's it. But here there are variety of tax model implemented. Now we are going to look at the model of GST. The GST divided based on the location of the transaction. If the transaction happen within a state, the CGST and SGST will be implemented. If the transaction happen interstate or between the state, IGST will be implemented. Now we are going to look at the details manner. If it is within state transaction, the CGST and SGST will be implemented. CGST means Central Good and Service Tax. It is the 50% on total tax it will be implemented. At the same time, SGST means State Good and Service Tax. It is a 50% on total tax will be implemented. Right? So the CGST, it's levied by the central government and it's implemented good and service and it's implemented within state transaction. SGST means this GST levied to be by state government and it's implemented good and service, it's implemented within state transactions. Right. So the next one is interstate or between the state transaction, IGST only implemented. This is IGST mean integrated good and service tax. It's 100% on the total tax. The integrated good and service tax, it's implemented interstate supplies of good and service or between the state transaction. It's implemented good and service. Right. So this is the details. Now we are going to look at the common GST rate. There are 5 common types for the GST rate. The first one is 0% tax rate. The second type is 5% tax rate. The third is 12% on tax rate. The fourth one is 18%. The final one is 28%. The 0% tax rate will be implemented all type of salt, sanitary and napkin, etc. The 5% usually implement household necessity such as oil, sugar, spice, tea and coffee, etc. The 12% tax rate usually implemented computers and processed foods, etc. Then 18% of tax rate implemented hair oil, toothpaste and soap, capital goods, etc. The 28% of tax rate will be implemented luxurious items such as small cars, consumer durable like AC and a refrigerator, premium car, etc. So now we are going to look at the common GST rate with example. So if you look at this chart, you can easily capture how the tax rate will be implemented. So for an example, if the tax rate 0%, everywhere is 0%. If it is the tax rate 5%, the transaction happen within the state transaction, CGST 2.5% and SGST 2.5%. And in the state mean between the state transaction, the 100% of tax 5% will be implemented. The 12% tax rate, if it is 12% tax rate within a state transaction, 6% CGST, SGST 6%. If the transaction happen interstate, the 12% will be implemented. If the tax rate 18%, if the transaction happen within a state, 9% CGST, 9% SGST. And if the transaction happen interstate, 80% total tax will be implemented. If the tax rate 28%, the transaction happen within a state, 14% CGST and SGST 14%. If the transaction happen between the state or interstate, percentage will be implemented. So you can easy to capture how CGST and SGST and IGST will be implemented based on the type of transaction. Now we are going to look at that the process of GST in Teleprime. So there are three important processes we should do. The first, we have to enable the GST into Teleprime. The second is stock creation with the GST rate, and the third is create CGST, SGST and IGST account. Right. So we will see the practical section next. At the time you can easily capture these